I didn't unmute myself. I apologize. Oh, our first little thing that went wrong. Thank you so much for to our speakers, Thomas, Celine, and Daniel. Inspirational to hear from you, and the best of luck to all of you in the future. And now I am thrilled to move on with the show and introduce our keynote speaker, who is really going to be more of a keynote interviewee because he and I are going to have a conversation that I personally have been really looking forward to. Jack Acosta is an esteemed alumni of California State University, East Bay, then Hayward. He received his BS in Business Administration in 1970. Whoa, sorry. Got you on that one, Jack. And his MBA a few years later, both from this institution, not my house, CSUEB, H at the time. He is a highly successful and distinguished business leader who was instrumental in the growth and development of several prominent national and international companies, but he never forgot where he came from, and he never stops giving back. His list of past and current contributions to the university is long, including his ongoing service on the Cal State East Bay Educational Foundation Board of Directors since 2004. He is a tireless supporter of CSUEB and the CBE, a constant presence at our events and functions, a valued trustee of the university, and one day he and I are going to go golfing together. That's just a fact. Please help me welcome Jack Acosta.
Thank you, JR. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me, Jack?
I can. And by the way, when you did your introduction, you neglected to mention that you have won 8 Emmys. Now, I don't know where you keep those. I don't know where you keep those in your house, but you talk about transforming one's careers and being successful. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. They're for sale at this point, but I appreciate it. Well, first of all, Jack, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, we met at the fundraiser a number of years ago.
We did, the 60th for the university. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a really good time. So I did not know this at the time, I don't think, that in 2010, this is something I didn't mention in your own credits, you were awarded with an honorary doctor of humane. They're probably
I was.
Human. Of
quite an
alien
honor.
letters, humane letters by California State University. That had to feel pretty good.
It was wonderful, quite an honor.
And I mentioned your contributions. So let's talk a bit about what inspires you to be so actively involved, not just with Cal State East Bay, but with education in general.
Well, let me just say, I'm a first generation student from my family. I was the first one to go beyond high school, or actually even into high school when I think of my parents.
Wow.
So through my life, I've had the opportunity to do a number of different things. And I went into the military. I was in the military for 4 or 5 years, and then got out and tried to go back to school, and found that it was a challenge. It's a challenge to try and go to school, pay your bills, be involved, live a home life. It was challenging, but as I went through all of that, I found that if you got an education, if you're given the opportunity, if you're willing to work hard, good things could happen. And once I entered my career, and my God, I had 3 or 4 different careers in multiple different companies I've worked with, but there's been that constant about education, how important it is. And when I had retired, funny word to me, retired, I still probably work as many hours as I ever did. I just do it from home now. But anyway, I felt a strong need, a strong obligation to give back. There's so many people who were in that same position I was many years ago. And if there was some way that I could help, then I wanted to do that. And so I got involved with the university, like you said, in 2004. And it's been a great experience for me. I've had the opportunity to work with 3 different presidents there. Most recently, of course, Leroy. He's been the guy that's transformed the university. When I first got involved, Norma Reese, the late Norma Reese, was the president. And that's when we were building the business school. And there was a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and a lot of need by a lot of people, a lot of students for that building to be constructed, for those professors to be there, and certainly for the education that they were going to receive. Because as they go out into the work world, you know, there's nothing more important than having confidence, being able to go off and do things and feel comfortable that you can accomplish the goals of whatever you happen to have. You have your own vision, and you just keep working at it. And giving somebody the opportunity to go achieve their dreams, their goals, was always important to me. So that's why I got involved. And that's why I'm still involved.
And where did you grow up? What drew you to Hayward in the first place?
Well, yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area. You know, my folks, they were, like I say, they didn't finish high school. And we lived in Richmond in public housing. We lived in Oakland in public housing. And then they moved out to Fremont. And then and I went to high school there. But I went into the military.
Did you go to American high school?
I went to Washington High School.
Oh, okay. My mom was a librarian at American.
Oh, is that right? Okay, all right. Small world we live in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I went into the military, got out, and then stayed in the Bay Area. And I'd gone to the local junior college, spent about a year and a half there. Had been accepted to go over to this well-known private university in Palo Alto. And once I got there, I found out that I couldn't afford to be there, and I needed a job. So I looked around for a job, and I thought I wanted to be in the business world. I didn't really know what that meant, but I thought banking was business. So, and it is to a degree. And so I was working at a service station, Shell service station. And there was a person who kept coming in there, and turned out he was a lieutenant on the local police department, Fremont Police Department. And he suggested, why don't you just apply, come down here and be a police officer. Now, I'd been in the Marine Corps, and a lot of people I knew had been in the Marine Corps had gone into law enforcement. And that really wasn't something I wanted to do, but I needed a job for sure. And so
you weren't attending school yet. You weren't in college yet.
I finished a year and a half of junior college.
Okay.
At that point. And I interviewed some banks, and at the time, you know, they paid you about $500 a month. And today, not much money, but in those days, it seemed like a fair amount. But this lieutenant kept coming into the service station I was working at, and he said, we start at $821 a month. And
did the guy ever buy gas?
He bought gas all the time. Of course he bought gas. Come on. This is not New York. Come on.
Employees all over the place.
So anyway, long story short, I decided to join the Fremont Police Department with the thought process, not to be a police officer long-term by any means, but to fund my education. And so I looked at that time, Cal State Hayward, and found it to be extremely flexible. In law enforcement, you work different hours. You work at night, you work during the day. So you needed flexibility around your schedule. And what I found was the quality of the professors. They were very, very supportive, I would say. I had direct contact with them. I didn't have to go through a TA of some sort. Very helpful. And the attitude was very helpful. It appeared to me that the people I interfaced with wanted you to be successful, wanted you to complete their courses. So, you know, that's kind of how it started.
And then you went on to, you worked as a police officer throughout school?
I did, all 7 years while I was going to school.
Wow, that is really rough.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do, right?
Well, you know, yeah, I mean, it takes some drive for sure. I mean, but when I talk to people today about their education,
yeah,
for me, it was having a goal. And that goal was to get the education and then use that education to go off and do something in the business world.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about for the students watching and about that transition.
Mm-hmm.
For you, what were the keys to making that transition from school to the business world, and then and what is your advice to students who are in that same boat right now? Obviously, there are different circumstances, different opportunities, different things holding them back. But
Well, that's right.
unfortunately, the
That's
budget
right.
is different on that.
It's a little different world today than when I was going through, but, and I transitioned through several companies and my career changed several times. But when I look back on it, there's just a few fundamental things I thought were terribly important for me that helped me. First and foremost was the education. Once I had my MBA, that gave me an opportunity. With that opportunity came, of course, a lot of confidence. I felt I could go anywhere and do anything. Whether that was true or not was a different question, but I felt I could do it.
Yeah, right. That's a big part of it, isn't it?
It's a big part of it, confidence. And then, of course, there's no substitute for working hard. No matter, I had a strong work ethic. Wherever I went, whatever job it was, I tried to do the best I could possibly do. And then, of course, along the way, you meet a lot of people, contacts. So if I look at those four pillars, that was what helped drive me, and I think was a big reason for success in my career.
And your first job in the business field was what?
Yeah, when I finished my MBA, literally finished my MBA that same day, I was happy, proud, walked in the police department and resigned. Didn't have a job.
Okay.
Because,
yeah.
because
Wow.
I never wanted to be a police officer to begin with, right? I wanted to be in the business world. So anyway, I applied at Ford Motor Company and was hired there as a first line supervisor producing pickup trucks. By far the toughest job I've ever had in my career. But
Really?
one of the jobs where I learned the most.
Huh.
You learned about manufacturing, production in the automobile industry. You can go anywhere. And
Well,
course,
these are the things that the basics, the sort of things that happen down, in the mud that that you have to, doing them and knowing about them helps you then run a department that is in charge of those things. No?
well, that's right. You get the experience. In those days, this was the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And, the automobile industry in those days was struggling. And so they had hired seven MBA students to come in to try and transform their culture. Well, as soon as the automobile industry started struggling, they were going to have a layoff. And first in, first out is kind of the way it works with the automobile industry in those days.
Mm-hmm.
But the good thing they did do for the people that were on the list to be laid off was bring in other companies, say like a job fair. And for me, that introduced me to Xerox. And then I was fortunate enough to be hired there into manufacturing. And then went over and spent a couple of years doing that. And they were producing Daisy printers in those days. I mean, nobody even knows what those are anymore. But anyway, we were producing them. And they were going through a contraction themselves.
I think that's what they had in our computer lab.
Exactly.
One room computer lab.
But the big break that I think I really got was at Xerox. I mean, when they were going to have a reduction in their production, and I was a first line supervisor there as well. Based on what I'd been able to achieve and the work that I'd done, they asked me to go into finance. I had an MBA. My major was management sciences, so I knew enough about it to be able to speak the language. And they asked me to go into financial planning and analysis, and so I did. And then after about a year, I was running that particular group. A colleague who I had worked with at Xerox, who was the vice president of manufacturing, went down to Atari and called me up one day and said, I need you to come down here and run my program management office. We're going to be doing a lot of programs, taking product basically from here and moving them offshore in the Asia Pacific.
And this is someone you had met previously in another.
He was the manufacturing vice president at Xerox when I went there.
At Xerox, so you had worked with him previously.
So I'm not closely, but I knew him exactly.
Okay. Right.
And anyway, he went to Atari. And so he called me up and said, come run my program manager's office. We got all these things we have to do and have to do it in a short period of time. Ultimately, I said yes. And I get down there, and what I found was I was the program manager. I was the program office. There was no other body there. And so my role was to build it and then take product and move it to Asia Pacific. And I spent about 2 years of my life in that part of the world, just getting factories up and running and buying product back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So where were you during those 2 years?
All over Asia. I was in Hong Kong. I was in Singapore. I was in the Philippines. I was in Taiwan. I went to China.
I'm sure that was an interesting experience. And did you find did you find yourself learning a lot about like international business as well? How different these different places might go about the same things that you thought you knew up to now because you knew how
Oh,
to do it in America?
the benefit of having that experience was learning the different cultures. And you
Right.
talk about different business practices that they had. It was it was a fire hose that you were drinking from because there was so much going on and so much to learn. And I was a novice at it. So anyway, but I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it, embraced it, and it worked out well.
That's excellent. So we're gonna wrap things up, Jack. I'm sorry to say, I would love to talk to you more. I hope we have that opportunity in the future. I know where you live in general.
Well, we have a golf course.
Yeah, I used to hang out in the frame of your home. I was 12, I think probably, being from Danville myself. But how about in closing, we do just a quick word to some of the students directly from you. I think they'd really appreciate that. We'd love to hear it.
Thanks, JR. The things that I would really emphasize is, get the education. I can't say that enough. It's so important. Cal State East Bay is a wonderful place. It's ranked very, very high. They've got great professors, great leadership. I expect that organization, that university will continue to grow and prosper long term. Develop a strong work ethic. I think that's paramount if you want to be successful. Make contacts along the way. You just never know when somebody you met early in your career might be helpful later in your career. And you yourself also become a contact for other people. Help other people be successful. And I would say set your goals and never give up on them.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us, Jack. I'm sure the CSUEB entire community values you very highly. It's always nice to see you. And like I said, I hope I get to see you again soon.
Thanks, JR.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Jack Acosta, everybody, class act.